thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. What a wonderful way to spend the day, showing our love for our backyards, right? We have a series of presenters today. Our first one up is Karen Bickford with Lee County Department of Natural Resources.
Okay, so again, I'm Karen Bickford with Lee County Natural Resources. I'm a water quality projects manager for the county. I'm working with some volunteer organizations locally affiliated with the Pond Watch program in order to do some pond, basically remediation type projects, including aerators into the pond systems to see if we can get them to be less green, less turbid, a little bit more functioning with macrophyte or emergent aquatic vegetation. So with that, let's dive into ponds. No pun intended. Everybody lives on the water. Whether you live in Lehigh Acres and you think that you don't really live on the water, you really do. What this map graphic shows is all of the stormwater retention and detention ponds in Lee County, all the little yellow dots. And prior to all of the grid lines that you see that are roadways and all the little yellow detention or the little retention and detention ponds that you see, it was a landscape more resembling, cypress domes that you see as you're driving across the state to Miami, or the landscape out in Lehigh Acres with a lot of live oaks. There was a lot of sheet flow. And it was a very wet landscape prior to us coming here and altering it quite significantly. So all that water had to go somewhere, and we, being very innovative people, came up with the idea that, well, why don't we just pond it, store it on site, and, we'll do this incrementally. We'll hold the water away from certain parts of the landscape so that we can live on it. And we did a great job. But the unfortunate problem is that there was the unintended consequence of what those ponds look like after a while when they don't really have any good function left in them because they've stopped functioning due to too much pollution. Maybe their morphology, maybe the way that they're built in the first place did not make them, very functional as far as being able to assimilate nutrients and other things in the environment that occur naturally anyways. Because nutrients occur in water bodies naturally, and that's how you get the whole food web. You get the phytoplankton, you get the fish, and so on. You have to have nutrients in the system, but too much nutrients causes some impacts that are very undesirable. So we're going to watch a little video that demonstrates how we all live on the water. Okay, so, I mentioned that naturally, nutrients do occur in watersheds. It's part of the natural cycle of things. It's what drives the food chain, and we need it. But at the same time, too much can be it can create undesirable consequences. So what are the inputs and outputs of pond systems? Because pond systems are just like the human body. Let's make an analogy to that. You have to eat in order to be able to move and to, exist, and all of your bodily functions have to be driven by some kind of fuel. Well, the food is the input. The output is exercise or breathing or, basically cell reproduction. So with ponds, being the system that they are, they have to have inputs to function properly, and they have outputs, and if they're not functioning properly, the outputs are pretty ugly. So examples of inputs that go into ponds, whether or not they're healthy inputs or not healthy inputs, are things such as failing septic tank leachate or irrigation that happens to incidentally run into ponds, domestic animal waste, herbicides, fertilizers, plant trimmings, clippings, pool pumping, you name it. Anything that you do in your yard can have a consequence. And so basically the point of the workshop today is to let you know what those things are and then how to basically minimize your footprint. The outputs, when they're not healthy inputs to begin with, you'll end up with things like trash. I mean, trash can be an input and an output all at the same time. Low dissolved oxygen. If the dissolved oxygen in a pond is too low, you might have fish kills. Invasive exotic fish species, because they're just more tolerant than the native species, so they're going to live in places where the native fish can't live. Bad algae blooms. And there's a difference between bad algae and good algae. We're going to go into that a lot later in the session, but there are such things as bad algae and good algae. And then a better balance when your inputs are not bad inputs and they're not excessive inputs are things like native plants, littoral plantings, emergent vegetation, higher dissolved oxygen. I wouldn't say high dissolved oxygen. I'd say something that's a healthy level of dissolved oxygen. Because high dissolved oxygen can also be a sign of high respiration, which is not necessarily a good thing. Native fish and good species of algae that are more desirable and indicative of a healthy system. Pop quiz.
All right, let's do this. The pop quiz, first quiz, everybody. Now, we decided to make this interactive because it's not just talking heads. We're going to make it interactive. We wanted to make sure you grab some of this. For that, we have these questions. And as we go with the questions, we're going to reward you for raising your hand and giving me the answer. Whether you say right or wrong, you still get a prize, okay? So the first question is, name one input that you are aware that you're...
Wait, this has to be for the right answer.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right, for the right answer
For
then.
the right answer. We'll give a consolation.
Well, that's iffy too, because sometimes the right answer and wrong answer. Well, we'll see that. We'll see. Regardless, we have prizes here. So, let's start with the first one. Okay, an input. What is mention an input? Yes, sir.
Rain.
Rain. What do you say? Yes, absolutely. Rain gauge for you. Another one. Any other input? Come on, guys. Fertilizer. Who said that? Yes, sir. What do you want?
Irrigation over here.
Irrigation, fertilizer. We're giving this as an award.
So these are buy one, get one for Organic Lee, which is a great fertilizer. Oh, what?
We'll give you the answer. Dump in the pool. She got it right there. All right. Okay, more questions. Okay, what is a good input in there? Because we said the pool is bad water. Too much fertilizer is bad. Okay, so good input. Native plant, excellent. So we have a native plant as a part of an input.
That gets a t-shirt.
Oh, that's a t-shirt. Ooh! And it's an extra large t-shirt. Ah, that's even better. You also get a prize there. No, she knows this stuff. Okay, one last one and move on because we want to keep everything rolling then. So now name some input that you can control.
Good job. Two over here. Fertilizer.
Two over there. Fertilizers. And you said dog? Dog waste?
And fertilizer.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. With that in mind, so keep yourself active. We're going to go back again into another series of questions. So we continue.
Yeah, we continue. Thank you. Great. Good job, everybody. So, to give more examples of inputs, just to drive the point home. You might see some of these strange things going on in your neighborhood once in a while, piping going out of somebody's pool and into the retention pond. Well, that's actually not legal. You're not supposed to do that. Lots of people think that that's okay, but you're really not supposed to do it. Another good example is like gray water discharges. I think there's another slide in here that has that. But, yard waste that's not properly contained. When people throw their grass clippings into their retention pond or they throw it into the canal, don't do that. That's a form of pollution. It gets really nasty after a while, and it does accumulate, and it creates sediments and muck. And, of course, the fertilizer, the domestic animals. Oh, and the one up in the top right corner. Sometimes people are not vigilant about containing their oil waste. In addition to being a pollutant, it's also a toxic pollutant. It can hurt you. So, you don't want that in anywhere. You want to keep that contained. Good place to remove and contain that, or a good place to take that is hazardous household waste or to an auto supply store that they will take it. The top left picture is a breached septic tank. Yeah, that happens once in a while. That's a bad one. The bottom left is a gray water discharge. That's a pipe running from someone's dishwasher or washing machine going out into the stormwater system. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that either. Top right picture is, it's just basic erosion, and it's because, do you notice anything missing on that shoreline? Plants, right, okay. Yeah, so that's what happens when you have too much wave action, too much wind action, and no plants on the shoreline. And then the bottom right is, and you'll see this quite often, it's just grass clippings. It seems really innocuous, but that is a major source of pollution that people really don't realize. And it's one of those things that, you see it every day, but you don't think about it being a problem until somebody points it out, and then you understand. But again, there's inputs and then there's outputs, and you have to decide on a day-to-day basis for yourself what kind of result you want to get. If you want to get a good result, you just have to be very mindful about how you're interacting with the environment in your yard. Another pop quiz.
Come on here, grab this. Let me take that microphone. Okay, now so you know about the output is obviously things that come out of the pond. Now I want you to tell me some of those. So pop some of those answers, please. Any output, name an output from your pond. What comes out of your pond? I know it's a tough one. Ooh, we're scared. Somebody from here? Nobody? Come on, anybody. What comes out of the pond? Okay, let me give you a hint. It rains a lot, so we're going to have something coming out of the water. I already said it. Water comes out of your pond. Overflown water goes into the dishes, just like the duckies. It goes all the way down into the river and eventually into the bay. What is that? Oh, there the answers are over there. Alrighty. So now tell me a good output. How about it's tougher now? A good output. What would be good in this case? Fish, good. Give her one. Fish, because if you improve the quality of the fish, of the water, the quality in the pond, yes, you're improving nature. You're putting the little fish, and the fish will be a bigger one, and then the rest, the birds and all the other stuff will be all joining. So yeah, that's a good output. You have another answer? Oh, who had an answer? Littoral, yeah, absolutely. Littorals will help enhance the wildlife. So yes, it is an output. Besides the aesthetic of the pond, for crying out loud, if you have a nice, beautiful lawn, people will say, "Oh, nice pond." It's a whole expression. It's a nice place to live. Last, name one output that you can control now. Something that comes out of the pond that you can actually control. Oh, she wants a prize, But Lisa knows that. But go ahead, because, we need to know.
Native plants. That's a good output.
That's something that you can actually control, absolutely. The type of plants, native, and also the amounts around. And not just around the lake or the pond. All the way up to the yard. Behind the house, right in front of the house. Everything is going to run into it.
Output, and it's both. It's input and output. Trash that you can control.
Yes, absolutely. Give out a price. You have. But trash is definitely one. Who said that? Yes. Oh, here. Yes, absolutely. Burn. What do you water? Oh, we also have these posters. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Ply Butcher poster. Ooh. You want a poster? Oh, he preferred this one instead of the dirt. All right. Continue. And we'll continue more.
And in case you're wondering, well, what do I do with my pool water? You're supposed to let it run over grass and seep slowly into the grass, just in case. Not down the storm drain bad. Outputs, the good outputs, the wildlife, just what we were talking about, wildlife. You've got abundant littoral growth. You've got abundant submerged aquatic vegetation down in the lower right corner. You see a lot of vegetation and a lot of wildlife where you have, and clear water. The water should not be turbid. It should not be green. It should be clear, but tannic, because that's what the water is around here. It's tannic. Those are good outputs. Those are healthy signs. Bad outputs, the bad and the ugly outputs. upper right corner is a major, major, major algae bloom. It's it's just that pond is completely loaded. You can't even really see water aside from the just basic sheen. Lower corner is a lot of trash and a lot of excessive vegetation growth, and of course fish kills. And then that lovely picture of the Caloosahatchee River in the lower right corner, that's a cyanotoxic algae bloom. Those things are really, really bad. They have nervous system consequences. They have hepatotoxic consequences, meaning it'll affect your liver. So you can get from things that are minor inconveniences to things that are really toxic. Downright ugly. So again, the inputs and the outputs, they do have an effect on not just the aesthetics, but your health and, the welfare of the pond overall. So it's a decision. All right. We're going to take a short break and watch a video, but I will take questions.
Okay. I noticed that we have some tilapia starting to invade. How do we control them?
I'm going to defer to Ernesto, but I would say that the tilapia are indicative of water pollution, definitely. But as far as control, what would you say?
Well, it's not so much pollution as it's actually an invader. It's an exotic animal who, obviously is from Africa, and it came here as an exotic. The problem with it is it's overgrowing itself because it's reproducing constantly throughout the whole year. And when we have a cold front, a very nice cold front, it will kill a lot of these fish that are not adapted to. So that's the reason why it should not be here to begin with. How to control it? There is very little to do about unless you go and apply rotenone, which is killing all the fish in there, and that will be the most practical way to sterilize the whole pond. But then that's not right. What people have done in some instances is feeding them in a corner with pellets, either crumbs or something. You're just feeding them and attract them to that, and have somebody who cast net pretty well, and then cast them all at once, and then remove them all. Of course, some of them will escape, but you train them again, and they will come back. But then you train them until you have enough, and you will see them all coming to you, and then you go and cast net them. It's very hard to remove them, but it's definitely one of them. They should be discouraged. If anybody capture them, remove them, absolutely take them, kill them, get them out. Yes, sir.
Some have said that bass are a good counteractant to tilapia.
Oh, yeah. Some people say that bass is a good way to contrast the effect of the tilapia. It's not so true, because actually tilapia is a mouth breather. Actually holds the young ones in their mouth, and by the time they come out of their mouth and they're too big, and the bass will not mess with them. So they are really, really protecting. In fact, you can identify tilapia by having a big, huge crater in the middle, and then the fish will be in the middle, like silly there. But and fish do those nests. The bluegills will do, but you see in the bluegill nest a little more gravel. The tilapia has no gravel whatsoever. It's just a sandy crater in the middle. Nothing in the tilapia will be in the middle. They're bad because they will filter, and as they filter, they remove a lot of the zooplankton. And the zooplankton is the one who keeps the algae under control. So if you're removing the zooplankton, algae will be growing, and it will be turned more turbid. And turbid is what they like to do, because the turbidity in the water will protect the tilapia. So that's like a mechanism of defense, natural mechanism of. And I had enough.
If you ever have any questions, If you ever have any questions about what to do, you see illicit discharges, and by illicit discharges I mean like those gray water pipes and things like that. If you have questions about anything, feel free to call the county. I'm always answering my phone. Even if I don't answer it right away, I will definitely call you back within 24 hours. Thank you.
So isn't that a beautiful video? I mean, when you look at it, it makes you so happy that you live here, whether you live here part-time or full-time resident. I mean, you're like, that's beautiful. That's why I live here. That's what I'm here for. But then if you go back and you think about it, those pictures that Karen is showing is also what we see every day. And that's also what we're doing to everything you saw right there. I've been down here 10 years now as a full-time resident, and it continues to get worse. I do stormwater engineering, and that's what I've done for the past 10 years, and I've worked a lot with municipalities locally and everything, trying to fix the problems that are out there right now. I spend a lot of my job going out and trying to, there's algae bloom here, and there's this here, and we're trying to remove nutrients here, and I've done a lot of projects to help clean that up. And it's not getting any better. I mean, we see those beautiful videos, and that's what we want to continue to see here. But unless we make a change, and the change starts with you and everybody here that is interested in making the change, we're not going to have that video for much longer. It's going to be just a video and just a memory of what this area once was. So where does that actually start? There's a lot of things that we do, and Karen already talked about some of them, what are our inputs and everything. But I think one of the biggest things that if you take away one thing from this is fertilizer. We can have a green lawn, and a green lawn's great, and we all want a green lawn because it's absolutely beautiful. And that's also, especially from a lot of us, I assume, are from up north. I think almost everybody in Florida is from up north sooner or later. But that's one of the things that we're used to seeing. We have a green lawn, and yes, it dies off in the winter, but we have snow on top of it. So down here, what a green lawn means to a lot of us also ends up turning into what we would also call a green pond. By not applying the fertilizer correctly, or not paying attention to your fertilizing standards, or applying too much fertilizer because you think you're actually helping your lawn, you're actually putting those discharges into your stormwater pond, which will in effect turn your pond green also with algae. That algae will then also make its way out to the rivers, streams, and eventually out into the Gulf. So some of the key points and key takeaways there are, we never want to fertilize over a storm drain. Big, big no-no. You know that storm drain that's right out in front of your house and you just accidentally ran it over? Don't accidentally run it over. Make sure you try to stay away from it. Also, if you have a lake in your backyard, try to stay at least 10 foot away when you're doing the fertilizer from the lake, because you don't want the lake will rise when we have storm waters, and it'll come and pick up some of that fertilizer. There's different things also. You can buffer some sensitive areas. It would be nice if you could do some nice planting, just like we were talking about the littoral shelves and everything, that will help keep some of that fertilizer, again, away. It'll help capture anything that did happen to run off if there was a storm event, say right after you fertilized. And then especially in the summer, try to refrain from fertilizing. The rainwater we have here, especially in the summer, is just absolutely amazing and does a fantastic job of keeping our grass green and everything during the summer, because there's so much of it. We have tons of rain, so we don't really need to fertilize during the summer because it'll all run off anyway. So the fertilizer isn't going to do any good, except for if you want a nice green pond to match your green lawn. And then I also have here, just as a side note, in the Caloosahatchee Basin, which I think we've identified as what almost everybody here lives in, fertilizer use between 2003 and 2006 increased 62%. So just think of how many extra pollutants we're putting into our water that are kind of making it turn green. So, you had a question?
Yeah, we've heard that leaving a buffer along the edge of the pond is a good thing. By buffer, I mean an area that's maybe 18 to 24 inches wide, just at the edge of the water. And leaving that grass grow, let's say, 8 inches high.
Yes.
Especially during the rainy season. The theory being that you're going to catch a lot of the sheet flow before it goes into the pond. Is that a valid thing to do?
I actually try to keep it at about 10 feet is actually what I would say. But 18 inches is at least a good start. And then also littoral plantings and stuff will help that too. So if you want to get some plantings in there even, so you weren't even mowing during the winter time, that would be even more beneficial. And we'll go over some of the plantings and stuff a little bit later. But there's even plantings that can help. And then it doesn't look like you're not mowing that 2 feet of your yard or whatever else. Because I think what you'll see, especially in some of the residential communities during the summer, is you'll see that water level will probably come up into your yard Approximately, probably about 10 feet, depending on the slopes you have and everything you have up. If you have a very low lake during the summer, it'll come quite a bit back into your yard. So we try to leave a really big buffer in there because during a really wet year, just like last year was a really wet year, that water's going to come quite a bit back into your yard if you have the lake in your backyard.
Do you have any feedback on how high to leave that grass? I'm not familiar with the grass down here. But up north you get grass. Some grasses, when they grow too tall, they throw off seed heads, and they get to be a nasty-looking thing.
It depends what kind of grass you're talking about. You can probably answer this question better, but
they talk about Floritam.
Well, you got to be careful because if you're in a gated community, sometimes you can actually get yourself into a code enforcement issue. They have regulations on how high your grass can be. Now, I say that because just Floritam or regular lawn grass is kind of the issue, but Ernesto could speak to what kind of grasses you could.
No, really.
No. So some sort of vegetative buffer is what is a good thing, but I'll leave that to.
We get a lot of pushback on that.
Yeah.
One of the things is the vendors, once they let the grass grow at a certain height, they've got nothing to cut it with, so they have to hand cut it.
Right.
People walking dogs don't like it because they're afraid of the snakes. So we get a lot of pushback on those buffers.
If you can leave me your information before you leave, I will get you a good solid answer on what you can use, and we'll work with you for your community and help you get the information you need for your community. Okay? What we need to do really is focusing on balancing our inputs and outputs. I'm not going to tell you don't fertilize. Well, I might tell you don't fertilize. I prefer you don't fertilize, but you're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to try to help you balance your inputs and outputs because I'm not going to be able to convince all of you not to fertilize your backyards. So I want to start out with there are good and bad outputs. There are things that you can help to do to make it better. And overall, our overriding goal is we just want the system to act more like nature. We can do things that will speed up the process of the inputs that we put in that were higher inputs than nature, such as fertilizer, which is putting higher amounts of nutrients into the water quicker than it would have otherwise. And we can do things that can help speed up the process to get those things back out of the water. So there's a balancing act that you have to do to kind of make it all work out in the end. Unfortunately, there's not enough science yet to make it move fast enough to keep up with what we've been doing to the water. So a lot of these are going to help the situation, but they're not going to fix it. So what does that mean? It means that you're going to have to dredge your pond sooner or later. It's going to happen. No matter how good you think you're being, you're going to have to dredge your pond sooner or later. So there are things that you can do to help to balance it, but science just isn't there yet. If we're going to continue to be humans, and we're going to continue to want green yards, and we're going to continue to put all of the outputs into the water that we put into the water, oil, and you have the guy out, your next door neighbor who's running his gray water out there and everything else, science just isn't there yet to speed up the process fast enough to make your water clean. So we have to try to do the best we can with what we have right now and balance that and eventually dredge our ponds. So this is just going to be a little video just to let you all know about the Lee County Fertilizer Ordinance. And the point of this ordinance is to help balance those inputs, especially during the summer.
Hey Russ, Lee County is sending us on vacation June through September.
Yay, what was the rainy season? So, how about the islands?
You know what happens when we get near water.
When it comes to fertilizing your lawn, phosphorus and nitrogen need a summer vacation. So fertilize smart and look for the double zeros when you buy summer fertilizer. It's the law.
How will we ever get through airport security?
Okay, so let's just start with the development alone is going to change the watershed. So just by putting your house out there, even though you're not putting anything directly into the water anymore, you've changed the watershed. You've changed how fast that water runs off of your property. You've changed where the water goes. You've changed everything. Part of what we've done as engineers, which could be good or bad, is we've also put in all of these stormwater ponds. So as you can see on the left, we have 6 Mile Slough over there on the left. in 2002, and on the right we have present day 6 Mile Sloop, present day-ish, sooner or later in time. And you can see that there's a lot of development, the slough has been impacted, and there's a lot of stormwater ponds. The stormwater ponds are helping in the fact that they are decreasing the high peaks of that flow out of the system. It's not decreasing the flow. You've increased the overall amount of water that is going into the slough system. Before, it used to go into the groundwater. It would just sit in those little wetlands, and a lot of it would soak in, and we're increasing the amount that's going out. So now we've gone ahead and we've increased the water that's flowing out. Even if it was perfectly clean water and we didn't do anything to our yards, it's more water. And even from your grass or any plants, even native plants, there are going to be nutrients that are exiting with it. So we're throwing those out there faster. So even if we did the best management practices we absolutely could on our site, we're still polluting the waters more than they were in a natural environment. And so that's just important to understand, that no matter how good of stewards we are, we're still going to have to be cognizant and make sure we're cleaning up our waters. Some of the things that can help when we're doing this are obviously shoreline plantings and everything that we've already talked about. And, sorry, I skipped ahead too much. I'll go, mine are out of order here. That's the problem. So what you can see here is we have 2 different ponds with different surface areas. The one on the left is much better as far as your shoreline plantings go and everything. You're going to be able to plant a lot more. You're going to help filter a lot of that runoff and everything from your fertilizers and everything as it's getting into the water, because you're able to plant more shoreline. There's just more shoreline there. Another good thing about this pond is you're not going to get the same erosion that you would get in the square pond. With the square pond, you're going to get a lot more erosion because the wind's going to come in and kind of turn up that water a little bit, and it's going to hit that shoreline a little bit harder, and you're going to get more erosion in that one too. And as we said before, erosion is an input. All of that soil carries nutrients, and you're just putting it straight into the water with erosion. So if you can design a pond, because if you want to go design a pond in your backyard, the one on the left is actually going to be a little bit better. So if you live on a pond, if you happen to live on a pond that looks more like that square one of the nice things to do might be to kind of make some changes to the edge of the shoreline to make it look a little bit more natural, because the big thing that we want to do is mimic natural systems. Unfortunately, I think what we found out over time is that humans couldn't design it better than nature. Nature already had it figured out, and a lot of what we're doing right now is going back and changing everything to mimic nature because they really had it figured out. So really what we have to do is figure out how to live with nature instead of going and trying to make this better system, which is the square ponds of the old days. So here's the planting. Sorry I had jumped ahead a little bit earlier. Here's the planting. So we have a good practice versus a bad practice again here. On the left you can see we have a lot of littoral plantings and everything. And on the right there are no littoral plantings except for grass. As we talked about before, with no littoral plantings, there's going to be some more erosion and everything. There's probably a lot of erosion in a lot of your ponds that you've seen from time to time, especially when the water comes down. In the winter time, we tend to see the erosion pick up and everything, just because there's not enough planting to stabilize that soil. And the shoreline even looks better with the plantings, especially when the water stages come down. We tend to start to get a lot of complaints about how people's backyard ponds look during the winter because the water comes so far down and you'll have erosion, or you see a lot of dirt because there's no plantings. But when we have the plantings of the shoreline with the natural vegetation and everything, they tend to be a lot better. People don't even notice that there's dirt under there. And then also what you're getting with this planting here is that planting's helping filter some of the nutrients before it gets into the big part of the water there. So that those plants are picking up some of those nutrients before it's going to go out that outfall structure that is in your pond. Okay, so this one, the one on the bottom, is the bad pond. No, I'm kidding. This is actually the same pond after aerators were installed. So we had aerators and shoreline plantings. So this neighborhood was obviously having a really bad problem here, and they wanted to fix their algae. So what can they do? They obviously had a nutrient problem. One day they will have to dread. We did not make all of their nutrients go away. There's still nutrients in the water. But one of the things they were able to do to balance this system and speed up the metabolism were to use nutrient uptake and everything. So I think they have mats. Do they have mats in this one, Karen? Yes. They have some floating mats out in this pond. And some aerators in the pond, and that helps circulate everything a little bit better, because part of the problem is once you get one of those algae blooms, they start to kind of block everything out down on the bottom. So the aerators are helping to move that algae a little bit better, get it off of the top so there's more clarity to the plants and everything on the bottom of the lake that are helping to take up those nutrients. And then here's just some other balancing options. Here's what we were talking about with the 10 feet back. You also have in the bottom over there, you have a rain garden type thing. That's just out in front of their house, kind of like a ditch. They wanted to make it pretty though, so there are plants that can be planted that will help with those, remove those nutrients from the water. Even if you just have a regular old swale out in front of your house, you can plant it and make it pretty. It's really, if you put the right plants in it, it's not going to impact the flow of the water, and it's actually going to help clean up the water. So there are options that you can do up there. You always want to try to keep a rain gauge out there, honestly, so you're not overwatering your lawn. Overwatering your lawn can also lead to a lot of runoff, and that runoff is also putting nutrients into the water. You can have a rain barrel, obviously, and then we're doing some littoral plantings, I think, in that picture up on the top right. It's Ernesto's turn. It's the most exciting part.
Do we have these as a prizes too?
Yes.
Oh, check this out. The calendars from the Charlotte Harbor NEP. Every year there's this beautiful thing. By the way, if you don't get the newsletter, you don't get the calendar. So if you get the calendar, if you get the newsletter today, you can actually come out of here, and then at the end it tells you where to send your. Oh, here's the newsletter right in the middle of the calendar. All right, so let's go with the questions. Name one action that you can do today to balance your pond inputs and outputs. Yes, sir.
Use the proper fertilization.
Use the proper fertilization. Yes, absolutely.
We have a winner.
Yes.
Littoral plants.
Plant littoral plants? Absolutely. And those things that you can actually do now. Yes. Another one. Another one?
Aeration.
Put in aeration? Yes. Invest in an aeration. Yes. Or start saving money for that, because there's another thing there. You were saying? Floating mats. We actually are experimenting on that process. Yeah, so it will be something that we can actually start implanting and implementing maybe when we get the results. But that's an experimental right now. And I tell you the truth. I'm sorry?
What's a floating mat?
You saw that little, it's like a raft, and it's planted with little cups, and the cups are holding water plants. Plants that are actually being able to stand, the roots going to be able to stand in the water. So it is it's another process.
I'll see if during your break I can.
All right. And before I move out of this pop, let me suggest you one thing that you can actually do, because some communities have been doing is actually educating the rest of the community. The board needs to know about these things. I mean, you guys are representatives, so go and tell the board, hey, we hear some other stuff about this pond. It's not just a water pond, it's not even a lake. It's a pond. It's a stormwater pond. And inform community cohesion. I mean, work together and maybe to have a plan. And that's another thing, a plan. Yes. You want a calendar?
I was just going to put the offer out that if you don't feel comfortable speaking on this topic because you're not familiar with it enough yet, but you're interested in introducing your board to it, we're willing to come speak to your board, do a presentation for them. We'll make it a lot shorter than the workshop, of course. We'll do it however many minutes you think would be appropriate, but we would be more than willing to come in and just introduce them to the topic.
Yeah, there you go.